So Valerie Howley, who was also one of the judges in the previous session, leads the Sorbonne Center for Artificial Intelligence, a premier R&D and education hub in the UAE and the Middle East. She's also a founding partner at True Global Ventures, and prior to that, she was a member of the Academic Advisory Board and a mentor for the Specialized Master of Entrepreneurship and Innovation program at HEC Paris. Valerie, please. We also have Awdesh Chetal. He's an entrepreneur and a technology professional leading global operations covering 11 countries on 3 continents. He's the CEO of HyperThink Systems and a partner at Risin Ventures, an investment and a venture studio operating in the US, India, and the Middle East. Awdesh? Then, my good friend, Dr. Hanan Basha. She's a visionary leader and a business strategist with over 25 years of experience, specializing in guiding SMEs and startups to success. She currently serves as the co-founder and chief strategy officer at Maverica, a company focused in augmenting enterprise functions through the development and integration of AI agents. She's also the managing director of the Founding Institute GCC and holds advisory positions in multiple startups. Dr. Hanan, welcome. Great. So I did a little bit of research about AI funding in the last 9 months to 1 year as well to get things kicked off. So from what I found out, in the past 6 months, AI startups have continued to attract significant venture capital in VC funding. And in Q3 this year alone, AI startups have raised potentially around $11.8 billion, bringing it a total for 2024 year-to-date, a record-breaking $53 billion. This has been a 35% increase compared to the previous year. So it's no secret something's happening in the AI space. And even in the Middle East, the growth has been significant. But at the same time, compared with the rest of the other kind of startups, whether it's e-commerce, fintechs, to health techs, every other startup, where specifically AI-specific startups, the failure rate also has been really high, right? Which has been over 90% compared to the other sectors. So, given that as a background, so we want to pick the brains of Valerie, Awdesh, and Dr. Hanan to share some of their insights about their experience, because 3 of them come from different areas of industry. Valerie comes from a combination of VC and academia, right? Awdesh comes from a system integrator, he's still a system integrator. System integrator plus a VC and a venture studio builder, right? Dr. Hanan comes from a entrepreneur herself, a business coach, and a person who runs a regional accelerator program. So they come from different areas of the ecosystem. So I'm sure this discussion is going to be really engaging. So, Valerie, I want to start off with you. I want to pick your brains a little bit on, because you're coming from academia as well. So how can startups align themselves with the emerging trends and keeping in line with the ethics in AI specifically and regulations to make themselves more attractive to investors in the AI space? Because we read a lot about the whole concept of ethics and regulation in the AI space. And it's a challenge sometimes. It's a chicken and egg kind of a thing, right? Whether you want to be totally ethical and lose out the dollars, or be a little bit shady or go behind the dollars. So what do you think?
Well, I think it's very much a key question. But I think academia and investment have both a big role to play in terms of actually keeping ethics on site and to comply with the requirement. And that's where, we have AI is quite complex, so it comes many of these young entrepreneurs are coming from academia. There are a lot of spin-off from university and so on. So the ethical conduct has to be brought in at the academic level, and then from the investor perspective as well, because you give the money to startups that does have some ethical principles. So I think it's very, very important. I mean, the compliance with ethics is very important for a startup. Also because the regulatory environment is very much changing. Imagine you have seen the the EU AI Act. It's quite difficult to say. It's also quite difficult to digest. But the regulation is coming at different level. EU has done already a big comprehensive regulation. The US has given some recommendation. At the UN perspective, we are also, I mean, there is work to build a global digital compact that include AI principle in terms of ethics, in terms of responsibility. So I think the investors are also the key to keep this principle and to apply this principle in the startups that they are investing in.
True. And I just want to ask a follow-on question. Is there, from an investor's side, is there pressure on this area about crossing these lines? I mean,
look, I think, I mean, as the regulatory environment is evolving, if you invest into a startup that is borderline, if I can say, they will get into trouble. So because the markets are global, so if you're a startup in the Middle East, you will have probably client in the EU, and then the EU AI Act is applicable to you. And so it's a safeguard. Investors can't take the risk of the startup not being compliant with the regulation. That's, I think, a big thing.
Great. Yeah, I totally agree with you. So coming on to Awdesh. That's my paper now. Okay. I mixed up the pages. Give me 1 second. Get my life in order. Where is that? Yeah. So, Awdesh, as I said at the introduction, you're an investor, system integrator, and a venture builder. It's a great combination. So I think you see different spectrums of the whole value chain as well, right? From an enterprise side to a growth stage from a startup side, where you're helping them to grow, and from an investor point of view as well, where you're putting where your money is worth, right? So I want to get your opinion on this. AI is a broad field today, ranging from generative AI to predictive analytics and beyond. Are there any specific subfields or applications within AI that investors are particularly excited about right now? Because I know when I speak to startups, they say, oh, we are going to integrate AI. Okay, so but what and how, right? So what is the really attraction out there, right?
I think as intelligence itself, artificial intelligence opportunity is there in almost every sector. But I think over the last 1 year since OpenAI came in and the slew of big generative AI apps have come in, I think generative AI is probably the hottest sector. So if you look at OpenAI, probably raised more than $78 billion now. You have Anthropic, raised another $40+ billion. You have Mistral in France. You have Cohere. So I think generative AI generally is the hottest piece, and it's continued to be similar with some more maturity across sectors in the coming year. So you have startups doing image generation, video generation, PowerPoint generation, a whole slew of startups coming out of the generative AI space. So that's probably hot. I think the second biggest sector is healthcare. So healthcare can see a lot of transformation with AI, from precision medicine to drug discovery, to inpatient, healthcare service provisioning, So that's a big, huge opportunity, and it will continue to be over the next 5 to 10 years. So you look at areas like synthetic biology, where now AI can help actually generate organs and generate humanoid based actions, right? So there is a lot of work in that space, and that'll continue to be there. So there are startups like drug discovery. We made a startup called Invectus. They've raised $650 million plus. There are multiple of them we know in India continuously raising big money, cancer research, imaging in healthcare and other spaces. So healthcare is big. And then you have, financial services. You have automation as a place. So if you've seen, the Tesla Optimus, you have Figure.ai with the humanoid robots. You have Wabi with the, trucking, autonomous trucking, and that space, in the next 10 years will become very big because you have the age of the robots, and there's a lot of intelligence embedded within the robots, and, autonomous devices which are coming in from cars to trucks to all kind of locomotives which will be intelligent. You have other areas, generic sectors, supply chain, logistics, oil and gas. So we do a lot of work in the IoT space, and IoT, essentially the way you look at AI in the IoT space, you look at intelligence in devices, in industries, and smart cities, and how do you essentially identify, look at asset performance, predictive maintenance, things like that. So, we know a couple of our partners who are actually looking at now asset intelligence models. So, like large language models, they have models which can predict complete health of assets and can also help in managing assets better, right? So all of these areas are attractive. I think you have a lot of creativity, video generation, movie, voiceover. A lot of creative sectors also have a lot of impact. But every other sector has an impact.
Yeah.
And as technology matures, you will see probably better outcomes and better adoption in some sectors as we go.
So I want to ask a follow-up question to that, because I want to draw out from your experience because as a system integrator running operations in multiple countries, so you deal with a lot of government sector, public sector, and enterprise sector as well, right? And then on the other side, you also work with startups, right, to help them grow, right? So how do you see this happening? How do you see the response from the enterprise sector in receiving? Do they like to have ingrown technologies, or are they willing to partner with startups? Because that's a great area to build the ecosystems as well, to create value within the startups as well. Have you seen that happening?
I think especially in AI, small is big. We see that a lot of right side small AI startups have good tech, and a lot of large enterprises have been open to adopting products and solutions from startups. But as a general thumb rule, large enterprises will look at larger service providers with better stability, financial resources, and better talent. So so if you go to a large oil and gas player looking at, say, supply chain optimization, inventory optimization, so you'll need a lot of subject matter expertise. So AI is not just about managing data, wrangling data, running ML ops, or running some data tools. I think the combination of subject matter expertise in the enterprise space is very important. So if it's healthcare, in every domain of healthcare, you need deep dive understanding of the domain and the problem and the data sets to be able to build AI applications. So similarly in banking and others. So enterprise requires a certain level of maturity. And if there's a startup where you have the right domain expertise, subject matter expertise, and build the right tech, and there's a good product market fit, and customers see real value, I'm sure they'll adopt. But most of the new tech, is coming out of startups, and sometimes what happens, innovation is difficult in large enterprises, and that's where, new fast-growing startups have been able to raise good money, build skills in-house, go to market faster, and achieve good product market fit faster.
Great. Valerie, do you have anything to add to what Awdesh was saying about the broader spectrum of AI technologies that are out there, and what do really investors look for really in that sense?
Well, I think AI is developing in many different directions. I think what is going to become more important in the future is specific use cases and the quality of the data that is collected for these specific use cases. So if you have a great AI application for automobiles, and that's probably one startup, and the different use cases are going to become very critical. I also think, I mean, I see the LLM a bit being commoditized. I think that's with what's happening on open source and everything. I think people will take in-house that technology and make it their own. What I can see as well is at the infrastructure level. So that's also a very key area for investors in terms of data storage, in terms of new way of manipulating the data. I'm thinking a bit further ahead with quantum computing. So I think all this technology on how to store the data, how to compress the algorithm will be sectors of growth. And then, as I said before, the application side, which is more the use cases for specific application for specific use cases.
Great, thank you, Valerie. Dr. Hanan, I'm going to come to you finally. So I know we get carried away with the technology and the innovation part when we talk about AI, right? Because that we feel that, okay, that's where the magic is. Okay, that is where the magic is, but sometimes that's not enough, right? And we've seen when with startups, with the success of startups, the team behind and the people who are driving it is so important. And sometimes when we are at pitches, I know we always talk about what's the team, who's the team, and we tell startups, okay, you've got to emphasize on who's the team, but sometimes I feel this is, it's never enough emphasizing about this, right? How important the team that is behind driving this amazing technology. What do you think, right? How important, and what's the real deal that they need to have in order to really impress the investors? Because we keep telling, right, investors always invest in people,
yes.
Not the product sometimes. It's all about the people. But it seems like it's never enough saying this, right?
Yes.
So what's your take on that?
I think when we're going through the program for Founder Institute or any other thing, the first thing we keep saying, what are investors looking for? And if we're looking just at the basics, number one is always the founder or the founding team. They know that they will have the drive, the grit, the perseverance to realize the vision that they come forth with, but also importantly, as we are seeing advancements in technology or a pivot that needs to be done, that they're still going to be able to carry it forward.
Yep.
And this is why founder or founding team is really important. Solopreneurs in this space, possibly with the AI and everything, could be a bit more overwhelming because you need an array of expertise. Everyone comes to the table, as we're always talking about founders, you're coming to the table with what you know, what you're passionate about, what drives you, and you complement one another. So if you have two people who are just the tech expert and they would know everything about it, chances are they're not business oriented. Chances are they're not investor friendly sometimes. They can't pitch their idea in a way that drives everyone in and they want to be part of it. And these are elements that you have to look at as a founding team. How can you look at those that definitely have someone in the expert field that you are pitching about? So now we're talking about AI. Like I say, I'm the chief strategy officer of the startup of Maverica. I'm not the AI expert, but we have the AI experts on the founding team other than the people who are within the overall team. You need to have someone who knows people. Again, business and startup is about connecting with people. It's connecting with your stakeholders, your customers, your investors, your collaborators, your employees. These are all people that you need a people person on the team. And that person would most probably also be the one networking, the one pitching, and doing everything else. You need someone who has the business financial mind as well. Because, again, this is an area that we can get so carried away by the vision that I want to change the world. Okay, how much is that going to cost? And how can we actually afford it? And what are the resources on hand that we can be able to carry this forward? So these are kind of the basic elements of what would make up the business. Of course, you need the creative person, you need the team who will be able to not only execute, because I don't think it's a matter of execution anymore. Maybe that's why we have AI tools that could do a lot of the execution, but be able to understand the vision and carry it out. Execution is both about the creativity, the strategic perspective, the innovative perspective, and being able to bring it all together. I say at the end of the day, I keep telling people, you're going to be thrown a lot of tools, and that's what we tell even people going through Founder Institute. Everyone's going to throw a tool at you, and this is the right way to do it. And this is the success recipe that worked, that got us to be a unicorn status. Think of them as ingredients to put together what works for you, to be able to create your own subjective recipe that would take you to where you want to go with the vision that you had started with, and also at the same time be very ready to pivot and to make all the amendments possible as per the shifts in political space, the economic space, the technological space, and everything else related to it.
Absolutely. And I just want to add something as well to that, because I've seen many startups I've seen over the last so many years, they miss one of these very important pieces of the pie, right? And they fail to recognize it, and even when it's pointed out by a coach or a mentor, they fail to recognize that is important. Because what happens is most often that, especially this happens with the techie side of the founders, right? More than the business side, right? The business side of the founder always knows that, okay, I don't know how to code, so I need to get the real, the rest of my founding team filled in the right way. But when it's the other way around, when the techies are the founders, I've seen that they are a little bit sometimes reluctant to see the other side of the coin as well, right?
But
because they feel, okay, this is my baby. I'm the one who coded it. I'm the one who built it, right?
I was just about to add that because they're very passionate about what they're doing, and more importantly, they are the experts in that field. But if you cannot find a co-founder or someone from the founding team members that can able to support you, that's why you have an advisory board. And that's why we encourage our startups to make sure they have an advisory board before they even complete the program. Those that would see, I call them the blind spots in your business, that have the expertise, that come on board. They're not full-time employees, so you're not paying them. There could be the arrangement where they get part equity for the services they are providing you with. They will help guide you through in the areas where you are not the expert in, until you have enough resources, financial and time and knowledge, to be able to have the completion or the synergy within those team members.
Absolutely. One of my personal mentors sometime back, statement he made to me once was, immediately didn't get to me, but subsequently did. He said, you never know, you don't know what you don't know. Right? And that's so true. And that's really important at early stage startups to have that kind of mentoring, so that you really get your pieces together, because that's exactly when you get your pieces together, that's exactly what would potentially impress the investors. Valerie, anything to add to that? I know you've been part of the master's program at
No, but we were talking with me about ethics. I think in the advisory board as well. So many grown organizations or large organizations are now having ethical advisory boards. And I think at the startup level, especially any startup that has to do with AI to a certain extent, should have in the advisory board the ethical discussion. Definitely in line with, around the 6 principles that has been that are well known now in the space, which is transparency, fairness, inclusiveness, explainability, security and privacy of data. So I think this discussion needs to happen in order to make this startup attractive to investors and to start that conversation, because as we know, we are not sure where we're going to all end up with AI. We've heard a lot about that, but it starts at this level. It starts at this level of a startup that is just an idea even.
Yep. So next up, I just want to throw out a general question to the three of you. So we've seen over the last couple of years, the typical AI startups are not your regular, not to take away any of the glory from the rest of the categories of startups, but not a regular e-commerce or a typical health tech or startup, right? Or a typical fintech solution that we see across the board. And those startups, it's sometimes easy. The metrics are established, the benchmarks are established, the rare KPIs are established. Okay, you got to have a X return rate or whatever, right? But it's somewhat different to AI startups, right? Because I think the journey is different. And how do you all see this? And how does this impact? I mean, okay, maybe as Awdesh, I want to ask you as well specifically on this, on the investment, because you do invest in startups through your venture partner firm. Do you give a little bit of time more for AI startups to come back with your returns or versus other startups, or do you use the same threshold for all startups? Not only for Awdesh, I want to get Valerie's and Dr. Hanan's opinions as well. Dr. Valerie, you want to go? Valerie, you want to go first? Yes, please.
Yeah, I think. I mean, at the end of the day, the truth about solving a real business problem is still there. So the startup has to solve the problem, identify the problem, and solve it through AI. So that doesn't change. I think what changes is the data part. And I think that's the conversation I had with my fellow judges. It's the access to data, the quality of the data, the ability to scale for the data. That is a metric that we are taking more into consideration. And as I said, I mean, I think some aspect of the AI hype and boom will be commoditized. So we'll try to stay away from that and go to a more leading edge solution or problem, basically.
Yeah. Awdesh, any thoughts about it?
Yes, so like in technology versus any other sector, you'll see there's this element of the unseen. So like when new technologies come, you'll see that, the technology companies are able to navigate regulatory frameworks or able to navigate a lot of constraints which traditional industrial, say manufacturing or pharma startups have to go through, because there's already a lot of regulations and there are borderlines which they cannot cross. So it's similar with AI. I think, as AI is growing, obviously there are a lot of gray areas. There are no regulations. There are ethical aspects. And so the startups now are able to kind of navigate that. But then as we mature and the ecosystem matures, you'll see more regulation and more ethical boundaries come in. And then, the constraints around investment and more focused investments also come in. So I think we'll see that phase of maturity and consolidation where as the governance frameworks fall in place, we will be able to draw lines around how these startups are accessing data, how these startups are accessing content, whether they have access to proprietary data, or they have access to data which is IP based, right? So I think a lot of that is in the gray area, will fall in place and mature. And AI, is something is fairly new for us to see, how it's growing and how it's maturing. Like the large language models, so you see a sense of maturity come in, the big players consolidate, and then and then probably raise more money and then offer more focused, solutions. So I think we are in that phase where some consolidation and some maturity is happening, and we will see some growth in those lines. Yeah.
Dr. Hanan?
I want to go back and actually build on what Valerie was talking about, that at the end of the day, it's about the vision of what's the problem. and who are you solving it for, and how are you solving it. And what we're seeing, what a lot of companies come to us, especially startups, when they come, is like AI, and I'm like, okay, great, but it's not a slap-on sticker. I know it's trendy, I know it's useful, but rather than look at, okay, and we do AI or we use AI, it's does it help you in the three main kind of, let's say, yardsticks? Does it help you in increasing your profits, decreasing your cost, increasing your customer satisfaction? Or in this case, if they're still building up, will it support you to deliver a better product or service faster to your target segment, so you're able to resolve their pains? And this is what's important, and I believe that from the perspective of investors, that's what they're looking for now. How are you integrating AI into your business? Are you building it? And now we go to the generative AI and the AI agents and everything related to that field. Great, we know it's gonna take a bit longer. We know investment would need to be higher. We know that maybe investors would have a bit more patience, but of course the returns could be higher again. But if you are using available AI tools to be able to satisfy the business issues you are resolving, then that maybe actually puts you more on the spot with the investors, because
Right.
now they expect you to expedite, to market, to resolve, to be able to see some returns and everything else. So I would advise all startup founders to really look at what AI tools are available out there, if they really can use whatever is there. I mean, at the end of the day, again, we were talking about ingredients and we're talking about building blocks for your business. Until you can test your product, you can get your prototype or MVP out, you can validate with your customers and in the market, and then start looking at, okay, now I'm there. Let me start, when I get the investment and the resources and the time and the team and the energy, and acquire some knowledge, that I can replace some of these building blocks with my proprietary technology, my AI investment. That would take a bit more time and take a bit more money, but then that kind of elevates my position and my solution to another layer that would be a lot more attractive to the investors. And by that time, you have built up enough of your venture to also increase your valuation. So then you're going into a whole new layer and a strata for the investment perspective.
Right. I think you want to add something. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. What I just wanted to say, and that just to reinforce what Dr. Hanan was saying, is that AI, at the end of the day, it's a tool, and it's going to be embedded into everything very, very soon. I mean, like quality in the 90s. Quality was a separate department, and then it became completely integrated into everything that people were doing. So the companies are going to be AI by design, and what will stand out is the companies that have AI as a competitive advantage in their product, and that's what the AI value will be. But at the moment, it's a big confusion about all AI startups and everything, and I think it's our role, investors, to really distinguish the one that have a sustainable future compared to the others.
Super. So I want to save a little bit of time for some Q&A as well, but before we go to that, to close up, I want to know, what is your opinion in the next 5 to 10 years? How do you see the investment landscape in AI evolving? Are we likely to see more VCs and investors being more cautious or more bullish about funding about AI?
I think there's a mix of caution and aggression. So I think caution for sure in sectors where there's more consolidation and maturity. And then regulatory play, ethical play comes in. So investors will exercise more caution. You will also see, investor play now. I think the big US-China, war in the AI domain, also geopolitical concerns, around where to put your money with AI as an investor, and and where is your investor base, where is your LP base, what's your mandate as a fund. So I think those factors will play. Aggression will play in sectors like healthcare. For sure, I think the way we see health today versus the way we see it transform 10 years from now will be very different. So I'm sure 10 years from now, maybe with the impact of AI, a lot of healthcare will be precision-based. So your genome, your medical history will be with doctors, and then every doctor would actually prescribe more precision medicines rather than over-the-counter medicines, right? So healthcare, will for sure see a lot of continuous investment and continuous growth. There will be for sure, I can say. Aggressive investments in the automation space, let's say, because we see robotics mature and there's integrated AI in robotics, in autonomous machines. So that sector will see a lot of continuous investment as well. So it's a mix of caution and growth. As these large companies mature, the rounds will be bigger. Okay, and then a lot of them will go into IPO. I think valuations will continue to increase for the big companies. So there'll be probably 1 or 2 generative AI leaders, and then the rest of them will be probably just gone in an M&A exercise or probably die out. So I think there will be a leadership emerge, and then there will be new sectors which will see continuous investment further.
No, you're right, because when I was reading a little bit before some of the statistics I shared earlier, something that really it showed was though the value of investments have gone up over the last 9 months, the number of investments have gone down, right? So obviously, going back to
the follow-on rounds are coming, so bigger rounds are bigger.
So obviously some really good startups have been identified where the valuations are high, the investment rounds are high probably as well, probably going up to Series B, Series C level as well or beyond. So I can understand what you're saying. Valerie?
Well, I think AI has demonstrated that a small company can disrupt very, very quickly big companies, even more than in the previous revolution, technological revolution. I think that has been very clear with AI. I think also that with the acceleration and the pace of evolution of the technology, companies are no longer don't have the luxury of developing in-house leading-edge technology, so they will have to put money into startups. They will have to invest into ventures. So I see more and more money flowing into the VC part. So with this money, I think what will happen is that AI is going to enhance some of the technology. I'm thinking blockchain. I'm thinking quantum. So the convergence of this technology is going to be very, very impressive. So I think the future is bright.
Great, Dr. Hanan.
Well, I think Awdesh and Valerie covered it, but I think there's also going to be a rise, and based on what Valerie was just saying, it's larger corporations don't have the speed to be able to keep up with what's happening, and I think that's where we're going to see a rise in CVC. That's corporate venture capitals, where they're going to be investing to be able, whether they're acquiring these companies internally and by default acquiring the innovation that's coming along with them, or they're supporting them to be able to use their technology and be able to open up the doors for them to support a lot more of the ecosystem. And this most probably would be from my perspective, what I'm seeing could be the largest kind of differentiator coming up. Again, is we have been saying over and over again, and I think every speaker and panelist have said this, we're still exploring what's happening. I don't think we can predict what's going to be happening for the next 10 years. We're hoping we can kind of have an idea of what's happening in the next 2 years, and then within the next 2 years, we're going to see a lot of that breakthroughs, that what Awdesh was saying is just evaluations are going to really be humongous. But back again to startups, they are the movers and shakers. They are the innovators. That's where they are seeing one element, and they can go a long way just by addressing one single problem from one single customer segment, and that's how they can get the traction and the investment from, whether we're still looking at angel investment or from the VC side.
Fantastic. Yeah, so I want to open up to the audience as well. If you have any questions, we have a couple of minutes. So I would really encourage you to keep your questions really short, right? So that we save up a little bit of time for more questions. Is there a mic that can go around? Okay, right. Okay. Also, if you can direct your question to a specific speaker,
yes,
that would be
Valerie,
even better.
how are you? Before I was not able to answer you, one of the questions one of the party was related to the equity or sharing. So what are the expectations from you investors or venture capitalists on equity from the investments you do to be some kind of guarantee obtain certain returns? I mean, I guess that everybody wants 10x or 3x or whatever by X number of years, but more in particular for startups like ours that we were presenting before, what could be the expectations when somebody's asking from 2 million to 5 million or 10 million on the equity you think you need to get from that?
Well, I think it's very depending on sectors, and we are just coming out of a tough time for VCs. I mean, the money had dried up, and with the blockchain crash and blockchain winter, so I think it's very depending on the sectors. But you're probably at the level of a big seed pre-Series A. So it would be around, I don't know, I can say perhaps 10-15%.
Thank you. That's great.
But you know that there are instruments that enable you to actually check your valuation. That's called a SAFE. It's called a SAFE. I can't remember what the S stands for.
I know.
Secured agreement for future valuation, or no? What is it?
Equity.
Which means that, in fact, you don't decide the valuation when you deal with an investor. You don't decide the valuation of your company now, but you will decide it when you have at the next round, and you give a discounted percentage to these investors. So at the next round, you will have a lead investor that is going to value your company. And once that's done, then you can say retrospectively to the investors, that's what the amount of equity you are entitled, because I give you 20% of discount.
Thanks. If may I, another quick question?
Yeah, just want to add something to what Valerie said. So it's a standard general agreement, the SAFE agreements are you can customize it a little bit, 5 to 10%. It's a generally industry accepted template,
or convertible
right?
Note, yeah.
Convertible note, and it's at an early stage which you are raising your first round. That's a good tool to use actually.
Okay, and then related to the exits, I mean, you were asking about exit strategy and so on. I'm very old-fashioned type of person, so for me, it's more on. My dream is more like going public, even growing and keep it with the business, or even diversifying. No need for an exit from the very beginning on my mindset. But there is an also alternative with the acquisition. So from your experience and your recommendation, maybe, I know it's not an easy question, but if somebody's tempted by being acquired to be part of a bigger company or just open a business unit instead of bidding for growing the independent and maybe more risky but more rewarding, not only from the profit but from the self-fulfillment type of experience, what would you recommend, or what is the
Look, if you get a VC on the cap table, then the VC has the mandate to give the money back to his LPs within 10 years plus minus. So that means that in 10 years' time, he's going to look at exiting your venture. And that means that he can put pressure on you to do certain things. Because either he gets either another investor comes in the next round and he can come out, or your company gets sold to somebody else, and then they recover their money with this multiplier that you were thinking before. So you will have a lot of pressure to exit the company, perhaps not at the time that you want, but depending on the other investors that are coming in the cap table. And I think we are going into an era of M&E, as we were saying, corporate venture. Are going to be very, very important because none of the big company can really keep up with the technological evolution and everything. So I think you might be. It's more likely that you might be acquired than go public. And that has an impact on your strategy. So you need to already think a bit along this line, because that's obviously has an impact to on your strategy to make yourself more attractive to certain big companies that you want to reach out or whatever.
Any other? I can see. You have one as well. Okay, we have another question at the back.
Hi, good afternoon. Sorry, I missed most of the discussion. I arrived slightly late, so I don't know who to direct this question to. But Valerie has alluded to part of the question, which is the retreat by venture capitalists for various reasons, I think, we've seen recently. And in light of the immaturity in some ways of AI and its development within organizations, how much emphasis are investors and VCs going to put on principles like ESG and governance? Or is that rush going to continue once things pick up again, or there's more confidence, a renewed confidence in some way? How do you see that playing out in terms of creating that framework of governance and the importance of that? Because I'm not sure that's really been considered enough at this stage so far, right?
Look, I think the technology has gone much faster than many people on this planet. And there is a big fear that the technology might go out of hand. So I think there are many people that are looking at regulating the technology. So the regulatory environment is going to evolve. We've seen already the EU has come out with the AI Act. I mean, the US is already doing also some recommendation. They have just signed an agreement that they will not do AI with nuclear for obvious reason. So I think many people are scratching their head and thinking, oh, how can we make sure that this technology is kept under control, and that will enforce regulation. So, and investors are not going to invest into companies that will be destroyed a few years later because they didn't follow the regulation. I think they won't take that risk. So, in fact, not ethics, but at least governance or certain principle will be embedded into the
regulatory frameworks and ethical guidelines are maturing, and investors are very much aware of these guidelines. And as Valerie said, as an investor, you would not invest into a company which will probably go on the wrong side, right? So I think both business and investment has to operate within the framework and within the boundaries, and investors will be wary of what are the boundaries, and invest in startups, who follow those regulatory frameworks. In a lot of countries, multiple regions, new regulations around AI are coming up, and investors are aware and are tracking those so that they are sure that startups follow and are within the boundaries of those regulations.
Great. Unfortunately, okay, last question. Make it quick.
Hello. It was a fantastic insight for somebody from my background. I'm a physician. I've got a startup digital virtual hospital in Perth. We're catering to the geography of as big as Europe and UK. And just a comment here. Health industry is such an industry where, with 7 years of my experience in getting pilot programs, in having different sector of patients cohort, and showing savings to the government, showing savings to the health insurance, it's been a challenge to go out as a company to raise startup, because everyone at the end of the day says, who's going to pay for it? And we are looking at, as a physician or healthcare profession, that we don't want patients to be ending up in ICU or in the hospital. Our target is to look at chronic diseases, picking up early problems, and giving them the health literacy and giving them the tool to prevent them from becoming sick. And it's quite a dynamic solution out there that everyone knows that we should be doing it, but nobody wants to invest money into that kind of a startup because the governments are too busy running the rest of the things. And the government always looks at, I'm going to pay money only when the patient is sick in the hospital. So there's no point in focusing on me to prevent the problem, which is going to be my problem in the next 10 years. It's not my problem. So just a comment. What do you guys think about this?
Look, I think that's very true, but I also think that the healthcare with all the data that is all, the data that is coming up with many different things, with the wearable and everything, we're moving towards prevention. And your best, probably your best partner are the insurance. I know they are not completely keen on that, but they will have. Because for them, it's going to be much cheaper to prevent than to cure.
Yeah, I'm just going to add to what Valerie's saying. What you are doing is more on the preventative care, which is very, very important. But again, looking from a business perspective, unless you can put it into figures to show what that problem, the size of the problem, whether it is the population, how much money is being saved by being able to save these people and prevent them from the chronic diseases rather than treat them on a daily basis, that's where the investors or even the governmental or semi-governmental organizations concerned about healthcare will start paying attention and see the value that you're bringing. As a business, it's always about the value proposition. What's the problem? Who are you solving it for? What's your value proposition? What are you doing that's different? And how are you making money? So unfortunately, as a business, you are not a nonprofit. You need to make money, so that would attract the investment.
And unfortunately, I have to make a deal with the insurance company, which I was quite reluctant to, because I didn't want the big company to make more money by our saving proposition, which we showed.
You don't have to. I mean, we can talk for hours about this. There are a lot of strategies to go about it. That's not the only or the first way to go. There are a lot of other ways. But, you know, happy to take this off the stage discussion.
But it's a comment that I just wanted to speak about my journey from being a socialist to, unfortunately, making mergers with the business community so that the project goes.
It's not unfortunate. You are serving patients. You're saving lives. It's not unfortunate. You just have to do it in a different way. That's all. It's a mindset shift. And I think this is applicable to every entrepreneur, especially those that come from a service-based background.
Thank you. Thank you for the comment.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us at this panel. Valerie, Awdesh, Dr. Hanan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I hope it was insightful to every one of you as well.
Thank you.